Okay, guys, Canada's Parliamentary Budget Officer, Jason Jacques, just put together numbers for Canada's deficit and budgets in the next few years. Our budget watchdogs are literally now forecasting a sharp rise in the deficit due to these numbers. And if you're a Canadian, you know all about the beautiful mess that is our country, everything from a limping real estate economy towards youth unemployment, a job market collapse. Like we're seeing pretty much the full kit and caboodle of bad things that could happen to your country's financial sustainability. So, decision makers at every level, public, private, are having to make difficult decisions. That includes hiring freezes across the board and also making serious considerations for AI in operations across the board. So, all of this is tying together, guys. We can't just talk about AI without talking about labor market. We can't talk about labor market without talking about economy. And we've been getting some comments in our recent videos asking for more coverage on sort of some of the financial pieces. So I'll try my best. Really, we don't take any sort of political stance here at Peak Demand. We're technologists first. So generally, we stand behind and with people who are for technology, just because we see it as a way for not only businesses and public sector entities to grow and evolve and provide better services, but I personally believe that humanity evolves as technology becomes better and empowers us to do more. So let's take a look at what CBC is saying about this observation, because we'll put together pieces of our own. If you want to see any of the pieces that we write, peakdemand.ca. We do a lot of comprehensive research, taking sources from different media outlets, studies, and so on. But just raw news pieces where it's like in your face, here you go, Canada, here's what we're talking about. We'll do every now and then, and you guys seem to like these ones more, to be honest. So the Parliamentary Budget Officer said Thursday he expects the coming fall budget will reveal a sharp increase in Ottawa's deficit that puts the government's previous fiscal anchors in jeopardy. Ottawa's fiscal watchdog Jason Jacques now projects the federal government will post an annual deficit of 68.5 billion this year, up from 51.7 billion. So that's literally what, more than 15, almost 20 billion dollars increase in annual deficit in just a year. So we just said, you know what? We're not spending enough. Turn up the taps or turn up the temperature. So I'm really hoping that there's good reason for that, because the states is investing trillions into AI infrastructure. To me, sound investment. It's going to create millions of jobs and skyrocket their economy and basically their operational capability going forward. Don't see that type of language or type of magnitude in Canada. We have an AI refresh happening, which was great. It happened in Montreal last week with Evan Sullivan, our AI minister. But I see billions of dollars being spent. I'm hoping to God it's in investing in some technology and infrastructure for our country, so that people can actually get jobs that will last the test of time. Jacques mentioned in a new report that he expects the federal debt to GDP ratio to no longer be on a declining path over a medium term, and a metric that previously a key fiscal anchor for federal government. So debt to GDP ratio is no longer on a declining path, aka our debts are not coming down as much as we want them to versus the amount that we're producing as Canadians. So we're producing less and we're going to be in debt more. What does that mean if you're a Canadian? You can do your part by reducing your debts, doing more for less, making more money for less, being more productive, being a better contributor to society. I always tell the guys I work with, if you're not using AI for anything you're doing, don't talk to me. Don't even try and lift a finger towards that mouse to click on my name for any chat or any shit like that, unless you tried AI and you're producing 3-4 times what a normal human could produce, and then you ask me for help. So there is a literal threshold of engagement to be able to work within this team. You got to be able to be productive, or we just don't talk to you. So I'm hoping that other Canadians, take that to heart and try and figure out a way to be more productive with less. The office's updated fiscal and economic outlooks published Thursday morning offer parliamentarians a baseline estimate of the state of federal finances heading into the Liberals' fall budget on November 4th. The office update does not include plans to incrementally ramp up defense spending to meet the updated NATO benchmark of 5% of GDP by 2035. I don't think we've ever met that. And you know what's funny now of all the times, like I think Carney was like, yeah, we got to get more, we got to get build up our industrial defense economy, and it's like defense. Why are you using a word like defense, bro? That sounds like wartime conversation. Or do you know something that we don't know? Because we're well behind in that realm of economy, the industrial wartime complex. So you're gonna use words like that, brother. You better come packing with some more conversation, because that's frightening sometimes, and especially the conversation around wanting to make sure our steel manufacturers stay in this country. Interesting. Updated NATO benchmark of 5% of GDP by 2035, nor does it factor in Ottawa's announced plans to reduce public service spending over the next 3 years. So let's take a look at what CBC's putting on a little 3-minute video, how they're going about explaining this.
Billions of dollars in new spending.
Hello, people of Nepean.
For housing, defense, and tariff relief. Soon he'll have to show how he's going to pay for it.
Mr. Carney has made it very, very clear that all ministers and all departments must participate in making the government more efficient.
There will be a budget in the coming weeks.
Good.
Expect lots of red ink.
And I don't want to characterize the deficit other than what I've already said. It's substantial and needs to be dealt with.
That deficit is expected to be bigger than last year's, which was almost $62 billion.
So a trivia question. Can the Prime Minister tell us, has there ever been a Prime Minister who has successfully doubled the deficit without even introducing a budget?
Even Carney finds that funny, man. That's good, man.
This government is undertaking the biggest investment in protecting Canadians in the Canadian military.
Earlier this year, ministers were asked to find ambitious savings, but exactly what could be cut, Liberals aren't saying.
There are a lot of things that I think need to be reviewed in terms of excesses that may occur.
How will government spending impact the outlook for Canada? It's still very early days.
This economist says Mark Carney's budget has to help tariff-stricken sectors while also trying to boost long-term growth.
Balancing those short-term needs with the long-term ones is going to be the biggest issue with this budget. How do they fine-tune this so that they cut?
I hate hearing people say that. Balancing short-term needs with long-term needs. We've been trying to balance short-term needs with long-term needs in Canada so long that our long-term needs eventually become our short-term needs, and then we just kick them down the road to look at the new long-term needs. We just got to cut it and say some short-term needs are not going to make it. We just got to cut them and lose them and take the damage there to just firm up a long-term need that we know we're going to be able to meet. Like every single time, and it's not liberals or conservatives, or I don't give a shit which side of what you're on, whatever we're doing, it doesn't work. It never works. We always have bigger deficits. We always have less service. We just have less and less and less as the years go on. Why? Why is this happening? Well, it's because the guys who are making decisions at the top level, I really do believe there is a fundamental disconnect between what the average Canadian feels and lives versus the people in power who are putting together these regulations and budgets for stuff, because it never works. Like my family has typically voted Liberal for a long time, just because, the immigrants, my mom, she's very ambitious. She was a woman coming up she wanted to have her own career. She has her little small business. So she's like, oh, liberals could be great. Da, 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 da. It's great for me. Great for me. Great for me. She benefited from that. But then you have a whole bunch of young people now these days. It's like, well, do liberals help me? Do conservatives help me? Who really helps me, like, with anything? And I really do believe it's going to be the party that can recognize that and stop trying to bandage old problems that should just need to die. Like, we just need to let some things go by the wayside, make hard sacrifices, and put our chips on things that we know can produce for the future. And generally, for the future means making young people or giving the young people a path towards sustainability. So I just hate language like this out of these types, just because it's like you're saying nothing to anyone, and it just annoys. It annoys me.
Come out with the right balance at the end.
The government is now adding a little additional intrigue. For weeks, ministers have been saying that the budget is coming in October. Now the Prime Minister's office is no longer saying that, prompting speculation that it could be punted to November. Kate McKenna, CBC News, Ottawa.
Our chief political correspondent, Rosemary Barton, was, of course, watching the House very closely today. So, Rosie, it's hard to know, I guess, what to make of this first question period.
Yeah, Adrian, I mean, first, an acknowledgement to everyone. The question period is not the end all and be all of what happens in Ottawa or even what matters in politics. But this is the first time Mark Carney and Pierre Poilievre have come face to face since the debate during the election. So the dynamic is worth noting, and it was pretty cordial. It's also pretty obvious watching the two of them that Pierre Poilievre is the leader who has the most experience in the House of Commons, is the most comfortable speaking in these short sound bites that are effective in that format. And you heard Poilievre push for evidence of results from the government in this first 6 months. As you saw there in Ashley's story, Prime Minister didn't have the best showing today. He was struggling to answer within the time constraints of question period. But perhaps the more critical issue for him, he wasn't really able to communicate clearly in this setting anyway, what the government has done over the past 6 months and how those decisions will affect or help Canadians. One final thing to watch for, Adrian, though, as well as delivering on some of these promises this fall, the government will also be looking for ways to collaborate with other parties to get legislation passed. And there does appear to be some openness, depending, of course, on the issue itself.
All right, Rosie, thanks very much.
So yet another political party in power that's quite literally doing nothing. I mean, you know what? It's so funny. I love Evan Solomon, AI minister. It's the first time I'm like hearing a politician say stuff that's like, oh, wow, I recognize what you're saying. That affects my life, and that'll be better for my future. So I'm like, Evan Solomon, kudos to you. Love you, bro. Carney and co, you can't be losing a Polly Paul in conversation when you're the prime minister. There's a lot of more pressure on you to perform, of course, but you can't be letting him beat you up on stuff that you should have answers for, or at least can draw conclusions that make sense for Canadians in a simple and clear way. For our political pundits here to be like, well, you didn't really say much there, Mark. Not good, especially when we're talking about budget deficits climbing in the billions. So, it's, I'll try and do more or have more conversations on this stuff, but this stuff really just, it does bring vitriol to the surface of my heart when I see more politicians spending money on things that we can't see or we don't know what they're spending it on, and it's not really affecting anything of value. I don't mind the investment into our military. I do believe Canada having a strong physical military is very important, so I'll give them that. But I do also believe that we are doing the darndest things with our money when it comes to real estate, when it comes to the banking system. Like we really got to think sharper here, guys. So continuing on with the article, the report does account for some $115 billion in net new spending over the next 5 years announced by government since the last fiscal update in December. The office said an economy weakened by Canada's trade war with the U.S. is dragging down Ottawa's tax revenue and pushing deficits higher as the Liberals also ramp up capital spending. So Liberals are spending more money as we're getting less money through trades. The trade war, makes sense. The budgetary office predicts GDP growth of 1.2% in 2025, 1.3% in 2026, down from 1.7% and 1.5% respectively. So we have a declining GDP growth. And I would even say a lot of that growth is being spurred on by people being hired by the government. So if you didn't include that stuff, we might have a negative GDP because our economy is not growing. I can tell you right now, business owners aren't calling us asking for AI automations because, actually some are doing really, really well. Say, hey, Alex, time for us to take it to the next level. No problem. We got you. But most of the time, it's people are saying, hey, I don't have a receptionist. I need someone to answer the phones. No problem. We'll build you an AI agent. Or, hey, I can't hire someone to work 24/7 or after hours. Can you get us an AI agent to work? Yeah, no problem. So it's stagnant. The feeling is stagnant. You have a few winners, a lot of people sitting still, a lot of people are contracting. But when it comes to government spend, like, I've never had a moment where it's like, wow, you guys managed to spend less and we got all this value out of that and our deficit went down. It's no, we're spending a lot more and you guys are not going to be able to wait to see what we're spending it on. So nominal GDP, a measure of federal government's tax base, is projected to be 12.9 billion lower on average from 2025 to 2029 due to lasting effect of tariffs. Let's just blame tariffs for everything, guys. No, we can't. We got to think differently. Budgetary Office says that with lower revenues and higher spending, budget deficits will be 26.6 billion higher each year on average through 2029 to 2030. The projections in the March outlook. So we're going to be owing $25 billion more each year going into 2029, 2030. Jesus Christ. The PBO expects deficits to decline slightly, but to remain close to 60 billion annually over the forecast horizon. Financial Minister Francois-Philippe Champagne on Thursday blamed the higher deficit on global trade disruption. Just blame it on the macro effects, guys. Blame it on everything that we can't control. What we can control is the ground floor and trench operations that we have going in Canada. Like, let's do something at the micro level to make it better at the macro level. With everything that's happened in the world, when you look at the deficit of Canada, a large part of that is in response to what has happened. When you look with everything that's happened in the world, when you look at the deficit of Canada, a large part of that is in response to what has happened. He told reporters on his way into a cabinet meeting. Guys, we are at peak politicizing here. This is politics at its peak. With everything that's happened, when you look at the deficit, a large part of that is in response to what has happened. You can't get much more politician than this. And I really do believe at some point in time, we are going to have economies, governments with AI agents built in them, because this is trash. You can't tell Canadians something like this and expect them to like you. He said after the cabinet that Canada continues to have some of a strong fiscal position among its G7 counterparts and defended the need for a once-in-a-generation investments to meet economic moment. It's always a once-in-a-generation investment window that we miss, unfortunately. The Parliamentary Budget Officer can have his own view. Champagne said, my role is to ensure long-term fiscal stability of Canada and make sure the investments are there to support Canadian economy for generations to come. Looking forward to that, bro. Jacques has expressed doubts about whether Ottawa still has fiscal anchors, benchmark metrics that show government is responsibly managing its debt. Hilarious. We know from Ford's hiring freeze in Ontario at a smaller scale that budgets are not being held in control, and he's literally having to make the tough decision to freeze hiring. You can watch our video we did on that. So whether or not this extends to a federal level is to be, it's still in question, but it's highly likely that the overextension of our public service sector workers is completely vertical, all the way from municipalities all the way up. I'm sorry, municipalities. I'm sorry, I didn't mean that. You guys need all the help you can get. Provincial level and federal level, do better. Municipalities, we're praying for you guys. Champagne said Thursday the Liberals' election promises to maintain a declining deficit to GDP ratio and balance the operating budget in 3 years, account for the government's fiscal anchors. So they want us to continue to drop the deficit to GDP, but our GDP is so weak that you kick up our deficit any little bit, and the ratio just gets thrown off. The Budgetary Office report shows that after expanding to minus 2.2% this fiscal year from minus 1.7% last year, the deficit as a share of GDP is expected to shrink through 29 to 30. Highly doubt that. Projections for deficit to GDP in the office's outlook are generally larger each year than those in the spring global platform, which is predicted a ratio of minus 1.6% this year. The Liberal government under Prime Minister Justin Trudeau used a declining debt to GDP ratio and a cap on deficit of 1% of GDP as fiscal anchors. And so it's funny because we try and pin our economy to, this is this benchmark. We're doing well if we're above it. We're doing bad if we're below it. But during the time that Justin's been in the office, Mark Carney's been in office, all these guys have done is just hire more and more government workers to increase the GDP to get over the declining debt, or to get over the debt, to see the ratio decline. So it's like, hey guys, here's our debt, here's our economy. We know that if we hire more government workers, the ratio goes down. It makes us look cool. So let's just hire more government workers. The ratio goes down. We look cool, instead of let's empower and kickstart our economy to let people and Canadians make more money, so that when we look at how much we're spending, we can say, well, our Canadians, our constituents are making more than we're spending, which is great. So really don't like that. I really don't like that politicians are using these sort of financial anchors or benchmarks that they're really in control of to try and guide the narrative. But politics, that's why I'm not a politician. I'm a businessman, a technologist. I'm into results. The Budgetary Office has total debt as a share of GDP is no longer on a downward path and will rise to 43% over the medium term from 41% last year. So we're literally looking at an increasing share of debt to GDP ratio with this new budget. As deficits routinely top 1% of the GDP. Jacques was named Parliamentary Budget Officer on a 6-month interim basis earlier this month before the House of Commons. So this poor guy's come on. He's looking at the budgets and the deficit and the accounting and going, holy shit, this is bad. And he's only a 6-month interim. I believe he's going to be gone. I believe this man will be gone at the end of his 5-6 months, because no one likes someone to spoil the party. No pun intended, but I truly believe that truth sayers who are sharing this stuff are gonna might get their lids capped if he talks too much. Hell, if they raise him up as a champion, let's go. Jacques. A permanent appointment must be approved by the House, and the Conservative Party has pushed to keep Jacques in his role. So literally, Conservatives are saying, keep this guy around because he's telling the truth about budgets. And meanwhile, Liberals are like, interesting numbers. We'll see you around in 6 months. So it's look at this. It's politics. Ugh, nasty stuff. Not so interested in it. Evan Solomon, love you, bro, because you're doing a lot for AI in Canada, which is what we really need. But all this other stuff, we got to figure this out. As Canadians, we got to figure out how can we get more guys like this on the microphone, as opposed to the Carney is telling us things that might not necessarily be, as clear and as simple and as straightforward as we'd like them to be. We need to know the hard stuff, the bad stuff, before we can come out of it. Anyways, I want to keep this under 20 minutes. We're at 22 minutes. If you liked this video, feel free to like and subscribe. I'm going to try and do some more on news pieces around the economy, around labor, because I feel like that really ties into the AI conversation a lot. It's also helping us get more visibility for our services and our automation. So again, my name is Alex. I'm from Peak Demand AI Agency in Toronto, Ontario. If you like what you heard, please like and subscribe. Looking forward to the next one. Bye now.